Mhm.
Welcome back to the Mindful Momentum Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Anu Arora, and today we are exploring something that sits at the heart of influence, leadership, and human connection. How do we translate value into meaning? My guest is Bruce Scheer, who has spent his career helping organizations do exactly that. Bruce is a five-time industry award winner, a two-time best-selling author, and the co-founder of valuespros.io. Pro as in PROS. He helps revenue teams clarify value, build buyer confidence, and accelerate growth through value-based approach. What I appreciate in Bruce's work, especially in his book, Inspire Your Buyers, Go to Market with Story That Sizzles, is this idea that the buyers don't need more information. They need clarity, they need confidence, they need a story that helps them understand what's changing in their world and what becomes possible because of you. That's why leadership, as much as it is go to market strategy, and that's what we need to understand, that we can't just go to market with more information. The buyers are exhausted with too much. Bruce, welcome to Mindful Momentum. So glad you are here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, Anu. Yeah, I'm really grateful I'm here as well. Just a little bit of backstory for your audience. Anu and I met through the National Speakers Association. I'm the immediate past president of National Speakers Association Northwest chapter, and we're an elite chapter and have had just such a great run, especially because some of our newer members, like Anu, coming in and really giving us the Bruce juice that we all need to have a really awesome chapter. So I'm definitely excited, Anu, just to talk to your audience about, hey, how do we, lead with value? How can we do a better job of communicating value for people who, need our leadership and influence in their lives?
That's where we should start from them. How do we?
How do we
How
do that?
do we
Well,
do that?
everybody needs to start by reading this fantastic book written by a guy named Bruce Scheer. Oh, that's me. Yeah, that's right. But I featured a book on Amazon, and it's been oh in the top 10 sales and selling management books over the last 2 years, four times over the last 2 years. So it's had a really good run, and for good reason. I took enough time during the pandemic to write a short book. And one of my mentors told me that, hey, Bruce, if you're going to write a book, make sure somebody can read it in the course of a flight. And since I've written the book, I've had 125 reviews on Amazon, which is pretty awesome. And some of those reviewers have actually sent me photos of them reading my book on a flight. One guy, a personal friend of mine, was former head of Disney Consumer Products Asia Pacific. He literally read it while he was in a doctor's office in France. So it's a fast read, and you'll if you put your head down, you'll be through it in an hour and a half, and the reviews are in, and it's shining quite well, and it's really a joyful book that I wrote. I've spent 25 years helping organizations go to market, did all the positioning messaging for Microsoft in the education space. Hewlett Packard, before they hived off the services division, I did all the positioning messaging of all their services practices. Here in the Northwest, where Anu and I live, I did the go-to-market story for a company called Tableau that was acquired by Salesforce.com. It also did a go-to-market story for Concur prior to their acquisition by SAP. Oh, and also SAP, I've done a ton of work for those guys too. So spent my whole career working with organizations, helping their sellers and marketers do a better job of selling their solutions. Some of that wisdom's embodied in the book, and what I want to talk to you guys about today.
Yeah, and it is has a five-star rating, which is something you didn't mention.
Ah, okay.
and,
Yeah.
and it's a wonderful read. Not just a wonderful read. I think it helps leaders think. When we get so focused on numbers, the go-to-market approach, we forget the narrative that inspires buyers. And
Yeah,
that is
and
what it forces people to think about. And I want you to talk about that a little bit.
absolutely. Yeah, and just for context, when I talk about inspire buyers, who's a buyer? Somebody who needs your service, obviously, or product or solution. And for many leaders, I've even been invited into the Strategy Implementation Institute to talk about, hey, if you've got a strategy that you need to, bring across your organization or ecosystem wherever you're playing, how do you do that? How do you inspire others around your message and your story? How do you build a narrative that what I coined that sizzles, which is really, really important to be able to do that. So what I thought we could do anew is break it down. There's five key components that people need to get right as they think about shaping a narrative that's going to inspire others. And so I'll go through each one of those components, and then afterwards, for everybody that hangs in here, we're doing a giveaway at the end of this episode that I definitely want you guys to take advantage of. So, Anu, I'll go ahead and start first. Everything begins with targeting the right buyers.
Hmm.
And when I work with organizations, typically, I'll talk to executives and I go, hey, who's our target audience? What segments are we focused on? What are we bringing them? And who within the account are we targeting? And I always get confusion and various answers. So this is quite important to think through, who is our target buyer? And crudely, I like to think about who's signing the contract, at the end of the day, because there's users and there's key influencers, but who might be the economic decision maker in this puzzle, or who's making the ultimate commitment on behalf of the organization on the buy side of the equation? And very often when I figure that out, and in this day and age, very often, if it's a high consideration solution that might be six figures and above, chances are that's going to be a C-suite person, and
Hmm.
actually a 42% chance based on latest data, and a 20% chance that that individual is going to be the CFO doing the final contract signing. So it's really important, though, to figure out who are we crafting our story for, and I like to craft it around the economic buyer, even though the narrative that you make is going to be relevant to everybody else who's part of that buying committee or on that buying bus, is what I like to think about. So target the right buyer, get that figured out, and from there, you can start to shape your narrative. Any
Hmm.
question or concern on targeting the right buyer, Anu, based on your experience?
I feel that this is a mistake people make. Sometimes we assume everyone is our buyer, and I think that is a challenge. That's on one end, and the other one is we can get very narrow on that. But I think the point you're making is who is also signing the check. Hey,
Yeah,
who is the one who is the decision maker? Who who is the one who is
absolutely.
deciding? And I think that's also something people can miss easily.
It is. Yeah, a friend of mine was selling a language platform to Chinese language institutions designed to help Chinese people learn the English language. And it was a very fancy platform. And my buddy, I just going, hey, one word. What are you selling at the end of the day? What are you giving them, that organization? He goes, Bruce, confidence. And I go,
Hmm.
okay, that's kind of cool. So you're telling me your buyer, they're looking for confidence? He goes, no,
Hmm.
no, 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 no. I'm like, oh, okay, you're selling confidence, but your buyer, who's your buyer? He's like, it's going, well, it's the owners of these language institutions, and they're looking for confidence. He goes, no, 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 they're not. The students are, but no, the
Hmm.
owners, they want more enrollment.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that's just a quick example of how things get convoluted and confused. So if we know who the owner is, what they really want is more enrollment in a very competitive space that they're in. And so that's what you're selling at the end of the day, because you know who your buyer is and what their need is: enrollment, not confidence. The students need confidence, and that's an
And
attribute of the platform, but not part of their top line narrative for those owners.
And
So
another thing, Bruce, what came up for me personally is that when I target B2B in my own business of coaching, I sometimes forget because B2C is very clear. I'm going to the consumer and I'm like, here is the value proposition of doing coaching. You can't do the same thing when you go B2B because they don't care on what the individual is going to get through coaching. They care what is the organizational motivation to get people coaches.
yeah,
So
yeah,
very
yeah.
different.
Well, and also that gets, really interesting as well, what they care about. Many people care about themselves first and then their organization second. And very often you're selling emotion to that individual, and then you're
Yeah,
supporting with some rationalization, some quantification, so they can take things upstairs and get it approved at an organizational level.
yeah,
But yeah, there's some nuance around that. But again, it all starts with targeting the right buyer, really having a strong understanding who's going to be signing that contract. And if it is upstairs, maybe they're going to care about money more than emotion. We don't know yet, but that's something you got to figure out. Once you've done that, then you can move on to step two of my framework, and that's what I call spotlight the problem. So for the viewing audience, you can see a slide that has a spotlight on it. For people listening right now, think of a spotlight that's spotlighting something, that's a really sharp, bright light. The beauty of a spotlight is that, you only see what it's focused on. You don't see everything else. And that's what, I argue is, if you want to inspire someone, that means to get them to take action. Start with the problem, and you want to spotlight the problem. So we're not talking about aspirations just yet. It's what's the problem in their way that's really causing them, consternation. Back to that example about selling this language platform to Chinese language schools that are trying to teach Chinese people how to speak English. you know, their problem is enrollment, under enrollment, and that's really hurting that their business. So that's a problem that we can anchor on: under enrollment, and then we can talk about, hey, what are the factors causing that, and what are the consequences of that? But we're able to do that. And I often ask people to do, spotlight the problem and name the problem in 4 words or less. And then when I ask that question, hey, can you name the problem in 4 words or less? Most people can't, and get really frustrated by it. And when I'm working with larger organizations and groups of leaders, they'll start, making a laundry list of all the challenges and issues and pain points, et cetera. But I'm like, what I'm trying to do is think through, how can we roll that up into a name, a problem name it's based on a noun. It's not a phrase, it's a name. Yeah, and once you've got that, that becomes the problem theme that you can riff around. But then that gives your buyer an anchor point of the problem that you're solving for them. Very
yeah.
powerful when you do
It
this.
is. I can almost see that. For example, I was thinking, what would it be in my case? And the word that was coming up with, people are stuck. They find themselves in a swamp, right? They are in this area where they don't know how to move forward. And that could be would you think that could be a spotlight?
Yeah, I don't understand your coaching practice well enough, so I'd just be completely shooting from the hip. But yeah, that's the right path, though, to coin a problem name, and hopefully you could do it in a way that, if say your buyer is shopping around,
Mm-hmm.
are you in a position to solve a problem for them in a unique way? And because of that, can you frame the problem in a unique way? Now, being
Mm-hmm.
stuck, I just even heard from another consultant out of the Netherlands last night, and her, hey, join my master class, and the promotion ends tonight. She led with being stuck. So I would just argue if all the other consultants and coaches are talking about, you know, the problem of being stuck, perhaps you can frame it a little bit differently, especially if you've got a different approach to that problem. Hopefully
That's
that helps, Anu.
amazing. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this seems like a personal coaching as well. I'm loving it.
Okay. Yeah. It's free, by the way. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And then, so once we've framed the problem, we give the problem a name. And again, this is the hard part. And I encourage everybody to get my book. I've got some wisdom and good, questions to try to tease out what is the problem we're solving. Once we've got that figured out, then we can move in and talk about the desired outcome. And, what that is, that's also a name. And that name is something that people would like to aspire towards.
Hmm. Hmm.
And who knows, in your instance, maybe it's, freedom or liberation or, something, if you're still going to go with the stuck analogy. What do they get after working with you or from the solution you provide? What is one of my clients at Alcatel-Lucent like to say, what's life on the beach like?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we give that a name in 4 words or less, which is pretty interesting.
I'm
And
still
then once
thinking.
what's that, Anu?
I'm still thinking, but we'll come back to it. If you're asking me, I'm like, oh, you got some of the gears turning very fast here in my head.
Yeah, yeah, and this process, that's why I love doing this work because it's brain food.
Yeah.
Your brain just go, and for me, when I'm working with clients, and I also do this on a not-for-profit, a pro bono basis as well, but even when I'm laying at bed at night, my brain's really active thinking about this, because you just want to make it just perfect and just get it really dialed in. So what's the desired outcome? And we want to name that future state. And then when we've got the problem domain and the desired outcome, when we've got those two defined, there's typically a gap between the two. And I
Hmm.
learned this from a consultant a couple of years ago that the value's in that contrast
Hmm.
between the problem and the outcome. And
Hmm.
that's you want to camp there. Because if you've got the commitment of your buyer that, yeah, that is a problem that we want to solve for, and yeah, that is a desired state that we would long to have. Then that's the right tension that allows you to then start talking about your solution, be it coaching or software, whatever you're providing. Then you've earned the right to talk about, well, how do we overcome that problem? And how do we achieve that desired outcome? Let's talk about the solution. And
Hmm.
and in the book, I call that showcasing the solution. Now it's time to talk about the how. How do we do this? And then from there, if they're still interested, then you can prescribe next steps.
Yeah.
And what I'd love to do is give you an example of how my brother sold me an old fishing boat. And
Okay, I'd love to hear that.
this story's featured in the book, and you guys can reread it there. But during the pandemic, it was a Saturday morning, 2020, early in the pandemic. My brother gave me a call, and he normally doesn't call me, so it caught me off guard. And I'm like, "Hey, Steve, what's going on? You normally don't call. What's going on?" And he's like, "Going well. Hey, I was talking to Dad, and Dad's decided he wants to sell his old fishing boat."
Hmm.
And so my dad's 92, and I'm like, going, okay, where's this going? I go, yeah, and he goes, well, he's decided he wants to sell it on Craigslist. I go, oh, now I know why you're calling me. I'm the unofficial family tech support guy, and Dad's freaking 400 miles away. So I immediately know where this is going. I'm like, okay, Steve, looks like I'm selling Dad's boat on Craigslist. And he goes, I was hoping you'd say that. Thanks so much. And I'm like going, okay, yeah, well, tell me about the boat. And he goes, yeah, but hold on a second. I was thinking you might want to buy it. And I go, I might want to buy it.
Yeah.
Why would I want to buy Dad's old fishing boat? Does it have a 49-inch monitor like the one on my desk right now? Or is it electric like the Tesla in the garage? Or, Anything cool about this thing? He goes, no, 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 it's just an old fishing boat. I go, well, why in the hell would I want to buy it? And he goes, well, how long have you been living on the island there? And I live on Vashon Island, just crossing the Seattle airport. And I'm going, well, 16 years. And he goes, huh, 16 years living on an island without a boat. I just feel trapped.
Mm, mm.
I'm going, trapped? What do you mean? He goes, well, I know you've got the ferry system there, but what happens if that active volcano in the backyard, Mount Rainier, what if that goes off?
Hmm.
Or what if that, the earthquake that we're all expecting, within 50 to 500 years, what if that hits? I don't know, Bruce. If I was you living on an island with my family without a boat, I'd just feel trapped. Am I going, well, Steve, I don't feel trapped, but I kind of feel trapped right now talking to you because family's putting breakfast on the table and I want to join them. Tell you what, let me call you back tomorrow morning and get you the details on Dad's boat, and I'll get to work and get it on Craigslist and get it sold. He goes, okay, thanks, Bruce. Click, click, boom. I'm out of there. So I'm glad he called me on a weekend because that night I didn't sleep so well. I kind of tossed and turned and ruminated my brain, and I couldn't wait to, get out of bed in the morning. I got out really early, and I knew he got up exceptionally early, and I gave him a call. I go, "Hey, Steve, guess what?" And he goes, "What?" And I go, "I'm feeling trapped." He goes, and he goes, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, just going, "Yeah, but Steve, seriously, why else should I buy that boat?" He goes, around your island, about every other mile in the Puget Sound is a marina. And your wife, Cindy, loves eating out. So you could actually go marina by marina, order takeout because their kitchens are still open,
Yeah.
and show up, grab that meal, and just delight your wife. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, wow, that sounds fun and
Uh-huh.
happy wife. That sounds awesome. And I'm like, just going, so Steve, would Dad's boat do that? Could I go to those marinas with Dad's boat? And he goes, well, Bruce, it's got 14 inches of draft. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You could get out there. If it gets really wavy and the wind comes up, just slow down. And yeah, it'll do just fine. Yeah, you could use it to do that. And I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. How do I get it? He goes, do you still have that old Lexus? I go, yeah. And he goes, by any chance, is there a trailer hitch? I go, well, yeah, my mountain bike rack goes into it. He goes, oh, yeah, then that'll work just perfectly. All you need to do is go to a U-Haul and get one of those trailer balls. That'll tow it just fine. It's a really light boat. It tows just fine. I go, God, how much does he want for it? And he goes, well, probably just a couple $1,000. And here's the good news. I just tuned it up and he put it into storage before he decided he wanted to sell the stupid thing. So it's going to run like a top if you go get it. And I go, oh man, I'm in. So I talked to the wife, and she's the one that I bow to at the house. And she said, yeah, fine. Yeah, go get it. Sounds like fun. And that weekend I drove 400 miles and went and got that boat. But I had a really rough negotiation. I asked my dad how much he wanted for it, and he said $2,000. So I countered with 3,000, and then we met in the middle at 2,500.
Hmm.
And so it was a tough negotiation, but yeah, I brought it back home, and man, I'm on boat number 2 now. But and yeah, just totally into it. So to break it down for you, what my brother did for me, he targeted the right buyer, and now you know why he's the smarter brother of the bunch. He knew I had money, knew I had a place to store it, knew I didn't have one, and he's not dumb. He uses his time wisely, and he called the right buyer.
Hmm.
And then what he did is he started by spotlighting the problem I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
This was completely, in the world of marketing, they call this an unconsidered need. I
Yeah.
had a need that I had not considered, and I'd been living on the island for 16 years. I didn't
Wow.
need a boat until
Wow.
he highlighted that I really did, because I wanted safety for my family. So he really nailed the problem. Do you remember what the problem was? What he called it?
What did he call it? Hmm.
Trapped.
Yeah. Yeah. You trapped. Yes. Yeah.
One word. He said,
Yeah.
God, if I
Trapped.
was you, I would just feel
Feel
trapped.
trapped. Yes.
And once I heard trapped, I couldn't unhear it. And
Yeah.
then that festered in my brain.
Yeah,
So
you
that's what I
could.
mean by, getting that problem right and just spotlighting it. Because, that's once he did that, I wasn't sold yet. I still asked him, why else should I buy it? Any good reason? And then he helped me coin in my brain fun and happy wife. Fun and happy
Happy
wife. Four
wife.
words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then he earned the right to talk about the solution. He
Mm.
created contrast between those two, created all that value, and then he started to take me to the promised land. You
Wonder
know,
if he
uh,
had read your book and applied it on you.
no, he did not, but he's featured in the book. This old doctor, old retired doctor, he's a hell of a sales guy. But he took me to the solution, the boat, and didn't talk about features and functions. He did say 14 inches of draft, which I didn't understand, nor did I really care. All I wanted to know is that boat going to get me to those marinas? That sounds fun. And he said yes. That's all I needed to hear. And then also he prescribed next steps. He talked about where to store it. He knew I had a little parking spot up at the yurt where this outbuilding that I have on my property where I could stuff the boat and get it out of the way unless I wanted to use it. And then he told me how to trailer it. And also, of course, he was on for tech support after I bought it and told me how to change the oil, etc. So that's what I mean, though, by a story that sizzles. He really took me through this structure and made it quite easy for me to buy that boat from my dad. That
Wow,
makes
wow.
sense, that whole
It
process?
it does, and the story sizzles too. And you
Ah.
are quite a storyteller. That actually worries me a little bit, but we'll
Yeah, yeah. That is funny.
that's on the side. So why is this so important today? Why do people need to
Well,
sell
even
true
even
value?
like yourself, if you're helping people get unstuck as part of a coaching practice, you and 1,000 other coaches, why you? What's special? How do you craft a narrative that allows you to stand apart? Right now in the world I live in, gosh, I was talking to a company last week. Oh, Bruce, we're an AI engine for sales enablement. We help sellers figure out what's the next best move based on what's happening with their prospect, what's happening in the CRM system, what's happening online. We, triangulate all that data and we make it easy for your seller to take the next step. And it's like, hey, that's cool. You and the 1,000 other companies that have that exact same offering, where's your story? Where's your narrative? How do you stand apart? What category are you in? What corner of the category are you going to own? What's your unique narrative that points to your unique value so you can stand apart and win more often? And it's going to become so much harder to do that as AI is kind of eating everybody's lunch right now. And so, competition, I just see it getting more dynamic over time. And how can you stand apart with a story that sizzles? That's why I wrote the book. That's why clients hire me. But it's just such an important thing. I think you need to compete in the mind as much as in the technology or the offering itself. You really need to help your buyer figure out what's wrong in their world,
Hmm.
what could be awesome in their world, how your solution is unique and solving for that problem and making that promise, and then taking that home with that prescription, that my brother did for me in buying that boat. So
I'll never forget that story. What you were talking about AI, and the question that was coming up in that moment was AI, is it helping with this or is it hindering that over dependence on AI in terms of how do we sell something? I see that happening a lot. Does it help with the work which
it
you're
helps immensely in my practice. There's 6 of us in my practice, and then we've got a platform that's AIified, I call it. But even with this narrative development work that I do, with our clients, we'll offer a value narrative, a narrative that the buyer sees value in.
Yeah.
So most people could show up and talk about themselves and their offering and the features and functions
Yeah.
and kind of mini benefits versus a true, buyer-driven value narrative, value in the buyer's eyes. And so that's normally where we start with our clients. Then we have a platform that helps our clients both communicate and quantify that value. And that's where AI is really super valuable to us because it'll, in our platform, we'll talk about who the target buyer is, characteristics of them, and then we'll highlight what solution we want to offer for them. And then AI will do this mapping, thinking about what's important to the buyer in relation to the solution we want to sell. And then we manifest value calculations, probably 6 to 8 value formula calculations around where that business impact is going to be and the value of that, the financial value. In those calculations, the AI even goes out and finds benchmark data to substantiate why are we calculating this amount. And so they can see all the underpinning benchmark data studies that we've referenced. And it spits out a report and even ties back to the organizational objectives that that their executive teams thinks is so important, either through their 10K or annual or quarterly investor reports or their 10K. It'll go out and look at that data to even tie back to what's important to that prospect. And that's really valuable. At the end of the day, for the high consideration solutions that we help our clients go to market with, there's still a human to human component. Last time I checked, people are still making the buying decisions, but AI can really help in correlating and drawing that relevance, for the buyer, and
Presumably,
especially substantiating with proof. It's quite good at that.
yeah, yeah, it's starting with some strategy and starting with that human ownership and leadership in understanding who do I want to get to? What do I want to, what's the problem? What's the solution? But then you have all these models which AI can help figure that out in a big way.
Yeah, but I do encourage people don't punt to AI, especially with your central narrative for your organization or your solution, like what we're talking about
Yeah.
today. don't
Don't.
don't delegate that off. Get that sitting right, and then you can tailor it to different buyers, and you can feed that into the AI like we
Yeah.
do for our clients.
Yeah.
We'll take that narrative and as part of the solution, input that into the AI to kind of manifest and tailor. But you do the work with AI up front to figure that out. And we
Love
even
that.
on the narrative side, I knew we use AI, what I call synthetic personas,
Hmm.
synthetic
Hmm.
buyers to test our narratives with to see how to make it better. We test across all the different LLMs to see the variance and try to get that right. And then we go test with real humans, real
Real.
buyers,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, to see how things are landing, then training the sales organization and the marketing organization and the success organization on the narrative so they can continue to use that in their selling conversations.
Let's stay here for a moment. One of the things I'm wondering is when you're working with these organizations, what are their biggest mistakes they are making? Where do you see the real challenge lies in how they are doing things currently and to what your model
Yeah,
suggests?
most organizations show up in a very me-centric way,
Mhm.
me-centric way. Their product first. Hey, can I get you to the demo? You got to see this stuff. It's awesome. And they're trying. They get too tech forward versus buyer forward is what I would argue. And so instead of showing up tech first or product first, I often argue show up problem first, buyer problem first, and that really helps guide the narrative. Like problem, outcome, solution. Celine, who we know in our world of the NSA, helped me coin this, the POS approach. At the point of
Oh,
sale,
yeah.
remember POS.
Yeah.
Stands for point of sale or problem outcome solution.
Oh, I like
And
that.
yeah, most often people start with the solution. Then if
Yeah.
that doesn't work, then they'll go to the outcome. And if that doesn't work, then they'll go to the problem. And I say, no, no, it's the other way around. Start with the problem, then go to the outcome, then go to the solution.
I had, in my prior life, worked in technology with Microsoft. And I remember that when we were building products, I was in the engineering. We were sometimes so removed from the what customer really wanted. In our, conference rooms, we'll talk about this brilliant idea of, oh, this great feature on
Mm,
Windows and
mm, mm,
Office, and I have through my 16 years worked on different products. And that's a fragmentation that I see often. Sales will say
yeah.
one thing, marketing says one thing, product development will say one thing. How do you create a narrative that the whole organization can rally around?
Yeah, what I normally do is involve all the different stakeholders. So, like Tableau, for example, I built
Mm,
their narrative here in the Seattle area. And the CMO and I were, right at the hip on this whole thing,
mm,
even though they brought me in because they were trying to move up market into the enterprise space, led by
mm,
their enterprise sales leader at the time. But their CRO on top and the CMO, all the sales leaders and the product leaders themselves. Actually, you probably know that one of the product leaders came from Microsoft. Um, they were all involved with me to build their narrative. And so I took them through some workshops and some different techniques to drive for what their narrative would be, the big problem we're solving for in their client's world, and the outcome we could promise in their solution, and how it was differentiated, especially in their space. We really needed to focus on differentiation, differentiated value, and build the narrative around that, which we were able to do, and to wild success. And so, once we were done with that core narrative, it immediately sales took advantage of it. But then their chairman got involved with it, and it became whole company training eventually, because
wow.
Tableau believed that everybody's in sales and everybody needs to understand the value that we're creating for our buyers. So it became part of their onboarding approach moving forward.
So
So not just for sales, not just for marketing.
it seems like it has to start at the top, and
It
then
does at the leadership realm, but
yeah.
I don't start and stop there. It's I'll leverage the leadership for input, and you'll see my methodology in the book. But I'll start with a market scan. Who's who in the zoo? What are they saying? And
Hmm.
I call that the market cacophony.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just like you in your coaching business, what are all the other coaches saying? Because you want to stand apart. So you need to get a benchmark of what's the cacophony.
Hmm.
And then I'll work with the leaders and push them. Hey, where's our unique value? And how could we articulate that in a way that is unique? And so I'll center some of our dialogue around that, and focus around that. And then from there, I can start to figure out, okay, what's the big problem we're solving for here? What's the big outcome that we could promise? And what's the big solution? Dad's boat, 2 words. What's the
Mhm.
big solution that we could offer?
Yeah.
Because then at the end of the day, a great narrative, it's not overly complex. And that's why I don't charge for by the word. If I did that, I'm only building out 12 words.
Yes. Because you like 4 words in the problem, 4 words on the
And the
solution.
outcome, and then forwards in the solution. Exactly. So, yeah, I don't charge by the word. I charge by the energy that goes into this for sure. And,
Oh,
and
wow.
also just the gnashing of teeth, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when this thing really, really spins right, it's when it's a unified story where everybody gets to play with that, both from, the customer acquisition side of the house to the customer retention and growth side of the house. Everybody's got this central narrative.
There's one thing you don't talk about, Bruce, but I'm already sensing it and feeling it is how much space it creates when we come to the consumer, or we approach the buyer with a very clear narrative, which is not filled with fluff and, you know, too much of stuff, and we have clarity with that, we can breathe. I
It's
mean, there's
normally
just
filled with
so
what I
much
call,
thrown at us all the time
yeah,
as a buyer and user. We overwhelmed. And then this just is brings so much peace and clarity. In fact, that's what I was sensing a lot.
no, I agree. I've got a short, acronym that I use for that. I call it BS.
Mm.
Too much BS, but it's the bad kind of BS. BS also stands for Bruce Scheer,
Yeah.
and that's a good kind of BS.
I
Um,
love it.
and also BS stands for broken story, and that's why I used to call myself the broken story fixer, but now I call myself the value vitalizer. Because once you get this narrative, this value narrative that the
Yeah.
buyers see value in, again, that's the ultimate test. The buy, it's
Yeah.
got to move the buyer, not you. It's got to move the
Yeah.
buyer. And once that happens, there's a lot of value in that, and
Yeah.
it's vitalizing as well. And I've had groups tell me, after I do my work with them, they've got more vitalization. They're, it's very energy fulfilling for them, and the
Yeah.
confidence really goes up quite a bit. I did a project for McKesson, and one of the general managers I was working with, Bruce, one of our reps has just had a fundamental transformation with the story that you built for us. She used to be afraid and didn't do very well, and now she leads with conviction. She's got a great story to tell, and you'll see in the book as well. A great story is also visualized.
Mm.
And one way I can tell people don't have a value narrative is I always, if I go, hey, how's your narrative? And if they say, hey, it's pretty good, I'm like, oh, that's great to hear. Hey, if you don't mind, could I see a picture of the problem you solve? And normally I get this question, what? And then I go, oh, you didn't hear me. Can you show me a picture of the problem you solve? And normally the answer is, what do you mean? Or it's no. And I'm like going, okay, you don't have a narrative, especially a visual narrative. And last time I checked, a lot of humans are visual in nature. And then I start by helping to characterize a picture of the problem, from a customer world perspective.
Even the
I'm not
model
talking
you
about
give.
architecture. I'm talking about a
Yes.
picture of the problem.
Yes. And the model you presented and also presented it through picture, I'll never forget it, because visual, you engage so many different ways
That's
of
right.
learning
Yeah.
it.
All those memory hooks in a
Yeah.
visual. A
Yeah.
picture's worth 1,000 words. You've heard that? Yeah,
Yes.
it's true.
So, moving to the last part of our show today, for anyone who wants to learn more, follow your work, or connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you? I know book
Yeah,
is
thanks for
one.
the question. Yeah. And on the book, right now you can see a QR code on the screen for people who are watching this on YouTube. And then the other way you can get to the book is through the show notes. We'll provide a link for you in the show notes. But I'm giving away free copies of the book. I've sold several thousand, but now for this audience, you can have a free copy as long as they last. So I hope you go out and grab one. You can take your phone out and look at the QR code here, or get a link in the show notes to go get a free copy of the book. That's a great way to get to know me and get into my head, if you would, because I took time to write that book. The other thing you could do is connect with me on LinkedIn. I do post about once a week, and I do the best I can to make it a meaty post. So I like to respect my readers' time, and hopefully I create value in the posts that I create. And feedback has been good, but that's a great way for us to stay connected. And then if you shoot me a direct note, I normally always get back. So unless something drastically is wrong. So that's probably the best way to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm BSCHEER on LinkedIn.
Yes, please connect. Please get the book. This is such a generous gesture. Thank you so much, Bruce. Truly appreciate it, and really appreciate your being here and for this conversation.
Thank you, Anu. Yeah, I wish you and your audience very well and success with your go-to-market narrative.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for joining us. Stay awake, stay intentional, and keep creating mindful momentum. Thank you.